What if I told you that one of humanity's oldest, most enduring stories, a tale of a world-ending flood and a desperate escape, might have a terrifyingly real scientific origin? For millennia, cultures across the globe have told stories of great deluges, but none resonate quite like Noah's Ark. It's a cornerstone of faith for billions, yet for just as long, it's been dismissed by science as, well, just a story. But what if both were, in a way, right? What if an actual catastrophic flood, on a scale almost unimaginable, shaped human memory and became the seed of those very myths? To understand this possibility, we need to rewind about 8,000 years, to a time when the Black Sea wasn't really a sea at all. Back then, it was a vast, shimmering freshwater lake, almost a third smaller than its current size. Imagine its shores, fertile, vibrant, teeming with life. This was prime real estate for early human communities, a stable, bountiful environment where agriculture was beginning to flourish. Crucially, the Bosporus, that narrow strait connecting the Black Sea to the Mediterranean today, was then just a dry river valley, a high ridge of land acting as a natural dam. This wasn't some isolated pocket. This region was a vital land bridge, connecting Europe and Asia, a corridor for migration, trade, and culture. Life here was prosperous, built around this immense inland lake. But unbeknownst to these early inhabitants, a monumental change was brewing thousands of miles away in the thawing glaciers of the last ice age. For thousands of years, as the great ice sheets retreated, they poured their meltwater into the global oceans. Sea levels around the world were steadily, relentlessly rising. The Mediterranean Sea, connected to the global ocean, was also rising, creeping ever closer to that natural dam at the Bosporus. The pressure must have been building, a titanic force pushing against that land bridge. Then, around 7,600 years ago, it happened. The Bosporus Dam breached, not slowly, not gently. Scientists like William Ryan and Walter Pittman, who first proposed this hypothesis, suggest it wasn't a gentle overflow, but a catastrophic cascade. Imagine not just a river, but the equivalent of 200 Niagara Falls pouring in relentlessly every single day. The freshwater lake, stable for millennia, was now being violently transformed into a saltwater sea. The water level would have risen by feet every single day, advancing inland by miles each week. For the people living on those fertile shores, this wasn't a slow flood. It was an unstoppable, terrifying invasion. Entire landscapes, homes, farmlands were swallowed by the expanding saline tide. This wasn't just a change, it was a total annihilation of their world. This isn't just a dramatic story. It's a theory backed by compelling geological evidence. Researchers have drilled sediment cores from the Black Sea floor, and what they found is astonishing. You can clearly see a distinct, abrupt boundary. A lower layer of freshwater sediments, rich with the remains of freshwater organisms, suddenly capped by a thick layer of saltwater sediments containing marine species. It's like a geological timestamp marking the moment the sea gate opened. Beyond the sediments, submerged ancient shorelines have been identified far beneath the current surface, showing where the lake once ended. We even find what look like ancient river valleys, now hundreds of feet underwater, perfectly preserving the contours of a pre-deluge landscape. Carbon dating of the organic material found within these layers consistently places this dramatic shift at approximately 7,600 years ago, a time frame that aligns remarkably with the origins of some of our oldest flood myths. So we have scientific evidence of a colossal, rapid, and devastating flood in a region that was certainly inhabited by humans. Now, let's talk about those myths. The story of Noah's Ark is just one thread in a rich tapestry of flood narratives from the ancient Near East. The Epic of Gilgamesh from Mesopotamia predates the biblical account and features a strikingly similar story of a wise man, Utnapishtim, building an ark to survive a divine flood. We see parallels across cultures: a great flood, a warning, a chosen few surviving in a vessel, the preservation of animals, and a new beginning. Could the Black Sea Deluge be the ancestor of these stories? Imagine the survivors, clinging to higher ground, watching their world disappear. Their stories, passed down through generations, would naturally grow, change, and acquire moral or divine significance. A regional catastrophe could easily become a universal story of divine judgment or a world reset, especially in a time when most people's world was only as far as they could travel. The sheer trauma, the scale of the destruction, would have burned itself into the collective memory. It's not hard to envision a terrifying geological event being transformed by oral tradition into the mythic tales we know today. So does this mean the Black Sea Deluge is Noah's flood? It's complicated, and it's important to be nuanced. Scientifically, the Black Sea Deluge was a regional event, not a global one. The biblical Noah's flood, by most interpretations, describes a flood that covered the entire earth. So, if you're looking for a one-to-one literal match for every detail of the Genesis story, like the Ark landing on Mount Ararat, the Black Sea Deluge, isn't it? However, it is a truly compelling candidate for a real-world catastrophic event that could have served as the kernel, the traumatic origin point for these widespread flood myths, particularly those from the Near East. It provides a scientific explanation for how a story of such immense scale and terror could have entered human consciousness and been passed down for thousands of years. It reminds us that our ancient stories, even those steeped in myth and theology, sometimes carry echoes of very real, very powerful natural phenomena. The Black Sea Deluge doesn't disprove the myths. Instead, it offers a fascinating scientific lens through which to appreciate their enduring power, showing us how the profound experiences of our ancestors facing an overwhelming world shape the very narratives we still tell today.